So you can see him hold something in his hand, and looking closely at it, some people might think this is a razor, a small kitchen. And if you look over to what else he's holding, it's his cell phone. And on his screen are giant words that say, carve a whale into your hand. Mohammed is a 21-year-old university student out in Egypt, and he is not entirely sure how things escalated to the way he is, but he proceeds to push the object in his hand, as painful as it is, and proceed to carve. He messages back and says, "It's been done," sends a picture. But a new message prompted, "Good job." And this gives Muhammad a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, because doing these tasks, it just feels like he's part of something greater, or at least that's what it's supposed to feel like. But slowly, Muhammad begins to feel else. And his phone buzzed again. "Now, are you ready for your next task?" Muhammad goes, "Yes." And the message says, "Hurt someone in your family." Reading and listening to this honestly feels like something out of a Black Mirror episode. In fact, even though Black Mirror is is not true at any means, some of the episodes are based off of this moment. And what we're going to be discussing today is a internet phenomenon that just happened to appear online and then magically disappear. We're going to be discussing about an online challenge that has led to over 130 cases claimed to be in sync with this online game. And some people might remember this, some people might have never heard of it, some people might even be victims of this online challenge. And today, we are going to be discussing the story of the Blue Whale Challenge. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cyberspeak Labs Defenders and Lab Coats. My name is Reanna Schultz, and I'll be your aide today as I guide you through some learning opportunities here in Cyberspeak Labs. Now, if you are new to the lab, welcome. We like to talk about everything with cybersecurity, including the dark, creepy corners of the internet that might have been forgotten. And additionally, because I work in cyber defense, I love to promote cybersecurity practices, internet safety, and all of these fun things throughout my episode. Now, because we talk about the scary dark corners of the internet, I do want to recognize a nonprofit called Mind for Youth. I personally have donated to this Mind for Youth nonprofit. They focus on providing mental health and counseling and education resources for children and teens. And they're doing a lot of great things. So if you are one that likes to consume the dark, creepy stories of the internet, please be an active listener, make a donation. We like to consume all of the weird things on the internet, including scary YouTube videos, but be an active listener and just make a small donation. It goes a long way, and you can essentially be investing in someone's future mental health. Now, because of the theme of mental health through this episode, I am going to have some disclaimers here. We are going to be talking about some very sensitive topics, including self harm, self exit, child abuse. And if any of these topics are triggering for you, please take care of yourself. You do not have to listen to this episode. We have a lot of other episodes in the lab that you can tune into with plenty of talented folk from the industry that come in and talk about their experiences and their takeaways. And if you do choose to stay, hi, welcome again. Just please make sure to pause, take breaks, and really take care of yourself. So, without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's start today's episode and let's learn more about the Blue Whale Challenge. So, again, for those who have followed this channel, you know I've worked in cybersecurity as a profession for about 10 years now. And I've seen a lot of stuff throughout my lifetime and things I can't talk about outside of my any employment or in a like conference event that I've been to. And long story short, nothing seems to surprise me anymore, especially when you spend your days, you analyze threads, you research cybercrime, you look at some of the things that people do online, which is a whole other thing that you can never unsee. But, anyways, while I was researching for this episode, my jaw dropped. And not only because of what happened, but also the little amount of accountability, in my opinion, as to how this all started and the consequences this person had faced. It's one of the most disturbing cases I've researched on the internet. And for us to learn about the Blue Whale Challenge, I wanted to start with one of the victims of this. And to the respect and the privacy of the family, I am going to use a pseudonym for the victim, and we'll call her Heather. So Heather was a 16-year-old girl. She was described by her friends as incredibly creatively, artistically talented. She loved to draw, and her family said she was especially close with her older brother, who we will call Jake in this story. So to everyone around her, Heather seemed like a normal teenager. She had friends, she had a supportive family, she was very, very talented, and some of the images that will flash across the screen, you could just see how incredibly gifted she was. But on a morning of 2017, Heather's family found that she had self-exited and took her own life. So her family was absolutely devastated, but they were very confused because there were no signs leading up to this. And by signs, I mean statistically proven that a lot of the time self-exit is around depression, mental health, feeling of hopelessness. Again, that's just not me making assumptions. This is just statistics proven for a lot of the reasons leading up to these actions. So the family was like, we didn't feel that this was the case. And her family just could not understand what happened. And so they started looking for answers, specifically Jake. Jake loved his sister. And they all started going through her journals. And Jake noticed she had drawings and some belongings. And he was just going through everything, just trying to see if anything made sense leading up to it. And then it finally clicked. He noticed there was a weird obsession that Heather had started developing with whales. There was even a drawing of a whale pinned to the mirror that she would use to get ready every morning. Flipping through all of her art books and sketchbooks, there were whales. And one drawing of whales, it showed the inside skeleton of a whale that the school proudly displayed on their art exhibit, and it was blue. So Jake thought this was really unusual because Heather had never talked about whales before. So as he was going through these sketchbooks, he also found something more unsettling. It was a portrait of a young woman he did not recognize. And underneath the drawing were words written in a language Jake didn't understand. Then after doing his own research, Jake discovered that the writing was Russian. And he kept flipping through the pages of the sketchbook. And not only did he notice his little sister Heather becoming obsessed with whales, it almost has seemed as if she became obsessed with learning Russian and this woman that he had no idea who it was. So what Jake does, he goes to the internet and he tries to look up for this woman, girl in Russia, whales, and he came across an article of a 16-year-old girl from Russia who decided to self-exit. And when he was clicking through the article, he realized the photo that his sister had drawn was literally the girl that had self-exit. And it appears that Heather was also playing a game called Blue Whale, which was tied to this girl from Russia. Now, as her brother Jake was going through all of the different sketches, he noticed her Instagram also had the hashtag Blue Whale Challenge. And so digging through her Instagram, he noticed that her feet was dangling on a very high place. He noticed that all of these strange behaviors were related to the hashtag Blue Whale. And he eventually found out that his sister Heather was participating in an online challenge, specifically that manipulated teenagers into harming themselves. So he discovered that when Heather joined this challenge, the tasks seemed simple, such as draw a blue whale, take a photo of it, put it on Instagram. And then the prompt would also then ask her, okay, now sit at a very high place and make sure your legs are dangling on the edge, which was one of the photos that Jake had found. So as Jake was going through all of this, he goes to his parents and he's like, hey, I think Heather was doing this online challenge. And their parents are like, what? And so what really marketed and coursed young teenagers or young kids into doing this was that the game, no one could win this game. And of course, being teenagers, ignorance is bliss. You go and you try to find how to play this game. And it consists of 50 challenges. Each challenge of this game progressively got more and more uncomfortable. It got more violent. It became towards self because the sick person behind all of this, in my opinion, that is their goal. They wanted people to be coerced into this game. They wanted them to hurt themselves or others and basically take care of society. And it's disgusting in my opinion. Especially like with Heather, I don't know. I truly don't. And the family's been really quiet about it for obvious reasons. But I really don't know mentally what was going through Heather's mind. Or, I remember being a teenager, I wouldn't always be honest in talking about my mental health to my parents, mostly because like I didn't understand my mental health. Nobody like really talks about mental health and stuff like that. And so I really feel like my generation coming in, we understand mental health a lot better, and so we're able to have these conversations with the generations below us. But again, I don't know what was going through Heather's head. I just don't know. But I will say, and Jake, in my opinion, deserves the biggest brother, bestest brother award of the year because he had the tenacity to dig through her stuff, her journals, her Instagram, her computers. Like, Jake wanted to know why he no longer has his sister. And I will say, when the family did go to the media about this, it was more of a warning for other parents, like, hey, look out for this blue whale challenge. Talk to your kids about the blue whale challenge. Understand what's going on because this happened to our daughter and we will never have her again. And we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. So it was very, very devastating. Now, going back to one piece of this all, Jake had mentioned a girl from Russia being involved with this. And this girl from Russia, her name is Reanna. And her passing had sparked the entire purpose of this blue whale challenge. And what was even more, in my opinion, absolutely sick, is how people used her passing as a way to justify on how society should be. And we'll get to her story here in a second, but just finding out about how all of this started. And there's been a lot of victims with this challenge. Heather's story, in my opinion, was one that was more, I would say, friendly for YouTube, because some of the tasks that were given to a lot of these other victims, in my opinion, were just disgusting isn't the right word. It's just vile, absolutely vile. And I feel so sorry for the families and everyone else that was impacted by this challenge as well. So let's go ahead and talk about Reanna. Reanna was basically the brain for the purpose, I would say, for this entire online challenge. So I am absolutely going to apologize before I even start this section of the recording, because I know you can probably hear it in my voice and my accent. I do not speak Russian at all. I tried to learn Russian one time, and I just can't. I don't have the patience for it, I guess. So I am going to do my best with this. And I also just want to be fully transparent. A lot of the news articles and statements and interviews that I did come across with this research, it was Russian native. So, as always, with the translations to English, things don't always translate to English very well in these instances. So I did try my best to find some of these articles that were already translated into English and etc. So just keep that in mind as I go through this. And again, I totally apologize on the pronunciations, but hey, doing my best here. So Renata, or Rena, is how we're going to refer to her throughout this episode. She was born on December 18th of 1998 in Russia. And there was a specific town she was obviously born and raised in. I am not even going to try to pronounce the name, so I will just have my friendly editing wizards put it on the screen. But I did try to get as much information as I can before her passing because I just want to highlight how great of a person Rena was, in my opinion. And what I can gather from online posts and from the family and from her obituary itself, again, a lot of this information was translated at best to English. But what I gathered was she was very, very loved and still is very, very missed. Now, growing up, Rena had her mother and her stepfather. Her last name was not her biological one, it was her stepfather's, because from what I can gather about her biological dad, he had basically abandoned her and her mom at a very, very young age. And from what I can tell with what her mom has said, or what the family has said, or allegedly what's been disclosed about it, Rena had a lot of resentment with her dad, whether that's true or not. I don't want to spread false information, but leading up to her exit from this world, essentially, I will say it does play somewhat of a crucial piece. Most of the time, if I can't find concrete evidence of things, I don't talk about it just because I don't want to spread hearsay. But in this specific instance, I think it's worth somewhat noting that it's been mentioned enough times that this was a big impact on her life. Now, her mom had remarried to Rena's stepfather. And like I said, Rena had taken her stepfather's last name and did not take her biological at all. Now, her stepdad, from what I can tell, isn't very public. He doesn't really post anything. He's very quiet on social media, which I don't blame him. I'm sure he's just trying to move on from the event, trying to be a dad to the rest of the family, and just go forward with his life. I don't know how anyone could recover from any of this, but with her mom, her stepdad, she had at least one brother, what I've found in articles. There are some stated that she had two, but again, different countries, translations aren't always accurate. But I know for a fact she at least has one brother here. But regardless, she had a family, and a family that absolutely loved her. And according to Rena's mom, Rena was so musically gifted. And in fact, she, from what I can tell, attended a very special music school in Russia. And here in America, you might know the phrase School of Rock. Well, Rena basically was involved in the Russian version of School of Rock. And she was a very, very gifted drummer, as she enjoyed to specialize in percussion equipment. And I even found articles where she appeared to be in a band. They would actually go and play. Their name was called The Needless. And that was based off of an anime show because she loved anime. And she was just a very happy kid. She appeared to have friends. She appeared to just be out there, very communicative, and she just was a very talented young bright woman. And so this is where I don't have that much context and articles from this opinion, so please take this again with hearsay rather than actual evidence. But to me, during this time, Reina was hitting what I would consider, normal milestones for teenagers. And this is, in my opinion, where teens are getting interested in partnership. They find relationships. They want to explore romantic interests. And of course, at this time as well, I remember being a teenager, my mom and I butted heads constantly. I didn't like the rules she had. I always tried to really press boundaries. And I remember as a kid, my mom had this rule where we couldn't have technology on Sundays until 1 p.m. And she would force us to make cookies and muffins or even learn to scrapbook with her. And I would just think oh my gosh, my mom doesn't understand that I love my weekends and I just want to go play video games or whatever. And of course, looking back at that now as an adult, my mom is pretty cool with that sense. I have a lot of fun memories, making breads and cookies and, stuff like that. So anyways, I would say with Rena's instance here, she was doing normal teenager things. She was butting heads with her mom, and I'm sure she was challenging her mom's authority because, as teenagers, everything in the world and parents just don't understand your feelings. And of course, Rena at this time also had an on and off again boyfriend. So she, in my opinion, again, is going through normal teenage milestones. And what I did find pretty consistent with the articles I was going through, again, Russian to English translation, it's not always the most simple, is that Rena appeared, or what was stated somewhat, is that when her off again and on again relationship was off, it seemed to be a big emotional toll with Rena. And I remember my first high school relationship. I remember the guy I had this crush on, and I laugh at this now. This guy I had this giant crush on, he had asked me to a date, and he goes, "Hey, I have," and I was a band kid. I don't know if that's a shock to anyone, but I was a band kid, and he was like, "After band, let's go to McDonald's and get some milkshakes." And I was like, "Oh wow, I'm just fine dining over here." But of course, as a teenager, things are perceived very different. I remember I would go get a strawberry milkshake. It used to be my favorite, but as a older adult now, I can't eat there anymore. I have severe stomach issues, probably because of the amount of McDonald's I would eat when I was younger. But anyways, back to this. I can also gather that Reina, again, her and her mom appear to butt heads a lot, and there were multiple news articles leading up to it where her mom would talk about it. And from what I can see visually, I could tell it messed with her mom, and I'm sure she had so much guilt about it. I mean, what parent wouldn't? And some of Rena's friends also, because what her mom did, and this broke my heart so much. What her mom did after Rena's passing, she would call her friends, Rena's friends, and ask if they knew anything leading up to it, if there were any signs that she was going to do this. And some of her friends were like, "Oh, well, she did say some things like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore," here talking about her human presence, and on how she said it or in the context she said it. Her friends never took it serious because they thought she was just Rena. She had dry humor, and it just seemed like that was part of who she was. And they, of course, with them, "Oh yeah, it's just Rena making very dark humorous jokes, whatever, moving forward." And of course, this had to devastate her mom. So leading up to these events, Rena would walk to a set of train tracks, and she would appear to take, leading up to the event, she took a couple of photos. Some of them I'm not going to post on here just because of how sad it is. And I don't want to encourage anything for anyone, or and just to also be respectful to Rena and her family as well. But the one I will post is I would say the more popular one that is all over, especially if you look up Blue Whale Challenge. It's going to be one of the first images you click on Google. And if you're just listening, you're not watching the video version, what I can describe to you, so Reina would be by the tracks and she was giving the bird to the camera, and she was wearing a scarf, she was wearing a cover. In fact, this exact image was the one that Heather had drawn in her sketchbook, because this is the image that went absolutely viral on social media. And the caption of this image, and this was taken in November, so November in Russia is very, very cold. So yeah. But she had captioned it, "Yeah, bye," which is also I don't speak Japanese either, but I've also seen people say "Nyan, bye," which can, and if you speak Japanese or if you know this more than I do, so please correct me in the comments, but it's mostly like meow, cat, bye. And it's just a very like girl cat anime type of thing that was very, I would say popular in 2015. If you remember the Nyan cat Vine or video where it was like a cat in a Pop-Tart and the rainbow, and it would just be like meow meow meow. Nyan cat, right? Nyan. So she had captioned that photo with that, and it's unclear if it was the next day or the following days, but you can tell in the background of the photo there was a passing train. And so the following day, Reanna had decided to lay her head on the tracks and let that be her final resting place. And it was very sad. That was her last Instagram post, and that's how she was found. That's how she wanted to go. And someone who was so young and so talented, like I can't even imagine the loss that like the parents were going through, and just seeing how short her life was and all of the impact that she had. It made me tear up. I'm not gonna lie, reading through this, because I can't imagine losing a child that way. But Rena's mom, I will give her so much credit here. I will say the families of these victims, they wanted to make an impact on the world. They wanted to improve someone else's life because they had lost one themselves. So Rena's mom, she was very public about her daughter's passing, especially her daughter was so young. And she went to public media, and from what I can tell, she really tried to make awareness about child depression, teenage depression, mental health with the youth, and how to be more involved as a parent. And her family let Rena's Instagram be an online memorial, and she let people say goodbye or post, memories of Reanna on her photos. And I was looking to find more information to see what her mom was doing these days, and it appears sadly in 2023 her mom did pass at the age of 51. And it was I'm assuming the stepdad had a lot to say with this, but her mom was buried next to the shared plot that she had with her daughter, and still to this day where they lay rest, it's covered with lovely flowers and trinkets. And just knowing that how much of an impact these two had in the world, it's very nice to see a community be so supportive. Now, I could not find actual evidence as to why her mom passed so young that was relevant, so I'm not going to speak on that. There's a lot of different theories out there, but just to respect the passing of Reanna and her mom, I'm not going to go into that. Now, after Reanna's passing and the awareness the family was going to the media, Reanna's fate, as I would say, became one of the most viral pieces of media of self-exit in Russia. And this, I don't know why this specific story was just so impactful to the media. And I don't know if it's because Reanna was so young. I don't know if it's because she was so talented. I don't know if it's because her mom was secretly good at PR. But her becoming viral was not the best thing for Russia, and eventually at a global scale. Her mom, there's two things going on. Her mom being positive with mental health for teens, and then the nasty scum, disgusting people took what happened to Rena and made it into one of the most vile, vile things that could have ever happened to anyone. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. So before I wanted to go into the disgusting creatures of the internet that it's going to be a whole rant here in a minute. I wanted to talk about whales themselves. And I really wanted to know why this challenge was called the Blue Whale Challenge. And I had I don't know. And I came across an article as to why whales were such a symbolism for sadness and poor mental health. And then of course like this also led to me doing some speculation a little bit. We will truly not understand why I would say the developer of this challenge named it the Blue Whale Challenge, but to me there's just some symbolism and me probably connecting dots that shouldn't be connected, but again, this is just my theory that I wanted to share with you guys. So the color blue, if you look into color theory, specific colors are associated to pieces of psychology. For example, the colors yellow and red are meant to symbolize hunger in food. So if you look at a lot of popular chain restaurants, you can see yellows and reds and um, some of them might have yellow arches on the outside of it. So just this color itself is known to help with marketing as well, where you might have other tones such as purple or a very, very dark shade of pink where they're more into eye pleasing and aesthetics. And then if you look into a lot of modern homes where there's grays and beige, it's supposed to bring a neutral tone into a house. And the color blue, in some instances, are also very pleasing to the eye as well. And blue in also some areas might also have a sense of sadness. And a lot of child movies, the characters that are represents as sad or unhappy, they might be a shade of blue or they are blue. And that's just because we're putting association to the color blue and what it actually means. Now, on the Russian flag itself, there's a couple of colors on the flag. One of them is blue. And from what I can read, again, translation issues, and from what I can read and understand, the blue is supposed to represent loyalty or faith to the culture. And it was very interesting to me because, again, the Blue Whale Challenge was stemmed from Russia. So I don't know if the color blue is meant to represent sadness or poor mental health, or if the color blue is supposed to represent royalty here. Now, going on to the actual whale piece itself, there is a very big, I would say, in in the marine biology world, there's a lot of I would say research done as to why whales might beach. And if you don't know what a beached whale is exactly what it sounds like. A whale just shows up on the beach, and that is where its final resting place is. And when I grew up on a farm, if you don't know this about me, I had a farm. It wasn't anything wild. We had a lot of chickens. There were barn cats. It was, I would say, your very small farm-esque vibe. And I remember when the animals would get old or they would just get sick, they would leave their home, or like with our chickens, they would leave the coop and they would go into our woods or like a very quiet place just to separate themselves from the rest of the flock, and that is where they would pass. And I also think it's more on the instinct side because predators would, they would go after the small and weak animals compared to the more healthy ones that can fight and run away. And so I also wonder if this is a way for animals to lure the predators away from the primary flock. But going back to the beach whales, there really isn't a true reason as to why whales might beach. And if you work in marine biology, please correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I do not work with animals at all, but there's a lot of different speculation as to why whales might show up on the beach. And some of them might be because they're sick and they'll just beach just to pass, or they have old age and that's just where they want to rest. And a lot of the times you cannot, I would say most of the times you cannot save a beach whale. Now, in a lot of states and countries, it's actually illegal to touch any sea life that's beached at all. But whales specifically, they have very large organs, they have very large bones. And so when the gravity is shifting from, being in water where things have more buoyancy and stuff like that, and then they go on the beach, these organs and bones become heavy. And the whale isn't designed and built to support on land density. And so then they would essentially get crushed inside out. So why the beaches why whales do beach, nobody really knows because you would think there's many other ways for a whale to go to passing. Another theory that a lot of researchers are coming with is the sonar radars. It's mixing communication with the whales, and the whales are getting confused with direction and where to go. And then next thing you know, like they're on a beach, and that is where they will pass. So again, a lot of people don't know the nature reason behind why whales beach, but I thought it was interesting that whales were used for the name of the blue whale challenge. So essentially, you have the color blue with the sadness or even loyalty, depending on which context you have, and then the mysterious nature of whales beaching themselves. So I thought that was very interesting. It's also very dark, in my opinion. But when we take this and we go back to Rena's case where she passed, and then we have Heather who had a blue whale being associated to her passing. The question stands is how did we get from a girl in Russia who chose to have a final resting place on train tracks to a girl in America related to blue whales that's somewhat obsessively sketching, Rena's photo in her sketchbook. So now that we understand the two stories, we understand what blue whales are. This is the full circle as to what truly happened with the blue whale challenge. So, like I said, after Rena's death, a lot of teenagers took this and went viral. And when this happened, there were many different chat rooms that started, I would say, being created. Now, in Russia, they have their own social media. I can't even pronounce it, but I'm going to include a photo if you're watching the video on this channel. And essentially, if for those in America, I would say this is very similar to like Discord graphs or Signal group chats, but it's more of like social media esque. And I don't like we don't really have anything like this, but we have similar things like this, if that makes sense. But it's catered to more of a younger audience, like teenagers, preteens. And these group chats would let teens talk about their day, a safe place to gossip, ask for help with homework. And so when Rena's passing happened, it seemed like that's all everyone could talk about on this platform. And eventually, students started to take their own creative spin on the story. And eventually, what would happen was students would be writing short stories, students would be putting their own spin on what actually happened. And eventually, this created urban legends and movie script esque. And if you watch Black Mirror with this episode, kind of related to the online challenges, there's also a lot of other scary movies out there as well that's very similar to this, where teens would have to take a challenge and complete it. If not, something bad would happen. And that's essentially like the stories that started becoming spun off with Rena's passing. And eventually, the facts and the truth of how she passed and the reason she passed started to get blurred with all of the unnecessary attention. And so then what appeared to be out of nowhere were people talking about this group called F57 and the Blue Whale Challenge. And friends were, I say friends loosely here, people on the social media platform were wanting to participate. They had no idea what it was. It just seemed like a very innocent online challenge, but it was super fascinating because no one completed. And everyone was doing the Blue Whale Challenge, and so they wanted to do it. And so it was then these teenagers, what would happen is they would ask, I want to be part of the Blue Whale Challenge, or they would make a post on Instagram with hashtag Blue Whale Challenge, and they would have to be added to the specific channel on the social media. And then, this is the sick part of it all, a facilitator was assigned to the user. And so F57, for 50 days, this teenager had to perform 50 tasks. And so essentially F57 and the Blue Whale Challenge, in my opinion, they're pretty much the same thing, just with different branding that came with it. A teenager would have to perform 50 tasks in 50 days. Each one of these tasks became more and more intense, more uncomfortable. And at the end of the challenge, you would be able to say, the person who participated in the Blue Whale Challenge, were one of the few survivors, because it's important. Of course, to a teenager, like, why is this important? Because allegedly, nobody has completed this challenge. Nobody has completed the Blue Whale Challenge. Nobody knows what you get at the end of the Blue Whale Challenge because nobody has completed the challenge for obvious reasons. Now, eventually, this became more than just a Russian trend. You would see posts on Instagram with hashtag Blue Whale, hashtag Blue Whale Challenge, hashtag 57, and the photos would be just random stuff with this hashtag with no context whatsoever. And some of the photos would be like someone watching a scary movie or taking a selfie at 3 a.m. for a whole week. And none of it appeared to have a trend. It looked genuinely random. And so that was until some of the hashtags started having images of people carving literal whales or F57 in their hands and forearms. But it's just like, why? Well, this was one of the tasks. You had to exploit yourself. You had to be able to be competent to do the next challenge because these challenges are not easy. So you need to show how committed you are to this group. And some of these challenges would eventually lead to teens starving themselves. They would not have sleep, and they would constantly be harassed by the facilitators. Like, are you going to do your challenge? Are you going to do your challenge? Is it complete yet? You need to complete your challenge. Are you failing the Blue Whale Challenge? Are you omitting this? And for any of you out there that are consumers of true crime or any videos of heinous cults, seriously, this is cult behavior 101. It is psychological breakdown. It is brainwashing. It's you're depriving food, you're depriving sleep, you're depriving social lives, and just wanting a sense of belonging to someone who is most likely in a very weak mental state, who is also not fully developed. Like, there is signs to show that a teenager frontal lobe, one of the most important parts of your brain, is not completely developed. And so you're just exploiting children, basically, to play this game. And so, however, to the outside view with these posts, it just seems like teenagers were being teenagers, minus the ones with obvious, but not knowing the true extent to what was happening behind scenes. It was just, yeah, I couldn't imagine living in fear. Being a kid and feeling like you can't talk to your parents about it because it's honestly like it could be viewed as embarrassing. But that was until this one father. And I will say, like, again, I said this earlier with the recordings and the video, like, the people who were impacted because of the victims in this, like, they seriously got together and, in my opinion, did way more than the general law enforcement in this case. I'm not saying all of the law enforcement that was involved, but, like, for the most part, like, people sat down and literally did their own private investigation of this challenge because someone had to do something about it. It was becoming out of control. And so this one father, he went through his daughter's phone because she was a victim of the Blue Whale Challenge. He had lost his daughter, so he was going through her phone, just looking through the things that she's done, and he eventually sleuthed on the internet from her phone, and this is where he finds disturbing, and I mean disturbing, group chats, Instagram posts, the amount of harassment his daughter had to endure, and just, again, at such a vulnerable young age. And she was being groomed and exploited by the ringleaders of F57. And so she eventually had committed her own self-exit in 2015. And in fact, when she had committed the self-exit, so Reanna had passed in November of 2015. This young lady had passed in December of 2015. And that's how fast this trend started. That is just how, like, the family probably just had put Reanna to rest. And all of this I'm sorry, it's so disgusting. And so after reporting evidence to law enforcement did conduct their own investigation, right? They took it serious, in my opinion. And in these chats, they found one of the first few posts about F57 and blue whales. And eventually, the father started going in and he started collecting any other posts that were associated to blue whales in the Blue Whale Challenge in F57. So he was digging through all of these hashtags, all of these posts, I would mention it. And he collectively had found that on a global scale, that 130 people were being involved in this challenge. And that didn't include people that were passed. This includes unique accounts, unique users. And of course, like, law enforcement came back and they're like, hey, like, we can't really with confidence say like 130 was involved. And, there is some truth to that. Like, it's near impossible to see how many people were part of this challenge, because you had in my opinion, the general facilitators of this entire challenge, and then you would have the copycats of this challenge that would take it to their own extreme and for their own sick purpose, in my opinion. And eventually, like, this dad came out and was all like, hey, you guys need to talk to your kids about this Blue Whale Challenge, because it's scary, it's harassment, it's like they are grooming your child to be part of this internet cult, and it's not getting blocked because it's not a phone app, it's not a game, it's literally group chats that a child and a teenager, some of these kids were as young as 10 on this challenge. Like, it's just, so that led to the question of, like, who was the original poster with this, because, like, someone needs to have accountability with everything going on, because this is just sick, absolutely sick. And eventually some internet sleuth, I don't know if it was the dad, I don't know if it was law enforcement, but eventually they started going back on all of the hashtag Blue Whale challenges, and they found the original posts in group chats to be owned by a guy of the name Philip Budikian. But then, Philip was a 21-year-old then psychology student. And I get so, like, this whole case is just, one, absolutely disgusting. But I just get so annoyed with how things were handled once the ringleader was caught. And it's like, I use the word here, and there are two different, probably more than two, sorry, but the primary types of online are just sick. You have your stereotype one, with grooming and everything else, and then to me the second type is like the cult side of just like exploiting young minds here. And it's just all bad. It's just disgusting. And the laws around this, even in the United States, to me is not self-sufficient at all. I'm actually trying to push a lot of change, at least in my community, with child privacy, child data, child advocacy, child being 15 and younger. And if you're interested, I will include my petition down below. I have over 100 signatures. I'm really trying to get to 1,000, and I'm really pushing on the fact that our kids need to be protected more, because a lot of the times, I'm sure if you're new to cybersecurity, you have no idea how dangerous a lot of the data usage and data farming is. Most of the times the general public doesn't know, and it's so disgusting with what's happening to kids online. So anyways, I will link it below, but back to this. Police found Philip. They took him in and they were like, hey, so what do you know about this blue whale thing? And how all these kids are allegedly self-exiting, basically. And his response, oh my gosh, he was like, yeah, I know about it. And the police were like, okay, but why would you do this? Why? And he said, I was bored and just wanted fun. This guy is harassing young people on the internet to perform heinous crimes against themselves or their loved ones and self-harm, and because he was bored. Like, what? And then it gets better. He basically said it is his job to cleanse society of biological waste. So he's saying these kids who are in clear need of needing a sense of purpose, a sense of community, of like someone to talk to have love and care and just a safe place to belong to, and he's using that manipulative tactic against them to no longer be here because he thinks they're a waste for society. I'm sorry, but it's just so disgusting. And what's even worse about this whole thing, of course, like the police arrested him, but Russia was, at this time, they didn't have laws against, like, I would say internet cult self-exit, things around there. Oh gosh, it's just like, I'm even getting shaky just thinking about it. Anyways, he got 2 years sentence. He's out. And like, what's just even worse in all of this is the fact he went to university to study psychology, which he then used against these young developing children. And you might be asking the question, well, this was 2015, does this even exist today? It does. It absolutely does. And so this is what's going to bring me to the self-awareness piece of this episode. So the Blue Whale Challenge itself, there are still different variants of this quote-unquote challenge. And not all internet challenge are safe. I grew up in a generation where we would have the cinnamon challenge, and then, we saw kids eating Tide Pods on the internet, and now it's just a whole other thing. So just being fully transparent with your kid, if you are allowing them to be on the internet, if you're allowing them to have TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and Snapchat, like, these are things that your child is going to be exposed to. Now, at the same time, it's also important to have boundaries and guardrails with your child. Putting age restrictions on definitely helps in a lot of these situations because it filters content based off of the algorithm. Additionally, also having conversations with your kid. Like, a lot of the times the victims of these specific incidents, not just the Blue Whale Challenge, but even similar ones where they feel embarrassed, they feel ashamed, or even the adverse effect, they feel like they're protecting their family because now the people that's facilitating these challenges, they're threatening to harm their family and their loved ones, and in reality that's not the case at all. And so it's just really important to know, like, hey, we can overcome this together. Like, obviously, talk to me about it, we can figure it out. No need to be alone in these situations. And of course, again, if you feel like you have any thoughts of self-harm, self-exit, please call your local hotline number. It's there for a reason. They're meant to help and support and really give you the resources that you need as well. And additionally, like, lastly, I would just want to say the Blue Whale Challenge is one of many that are like this. A lot of even like hacking groups and a lot of like very, I would say, grooming groups as well. Like, they really target kids on video games such as Roblox, Fortnite, and just like it's important that you tell your child to not leave that platform to go talk to someone else, whether it's their phone, joining a Telegram group, joining a Discord group. It's really, really important that you allow your kid to know this knowledge because a lot of times parents don't think about it. They think these platforms are safe and they're monitored, and they're not. They're not at all. It's very scary. I use the analogy for parents. It's like leaving your kid alone in a gas station downtown a major city and just being like, well, I hope you find your way back home. Here's our address. Good luck. And it's just kind of like, do you really trust your kid to do that? And the answer is no. Then that's essentially what the internet is. The video games, the gas station. You're dropping your kid at the gas station. It's like, all right, have fun, make friends. Let me know if you need anything. There's pizza rolls in the microwave type of thing. So again, that's all I had for this episode. I just really be cautious with online challenges. I wanted to share this one because I've seen a rise of these online challenges coming back. And I really think it's important that we talk about them. Again, this happened in 2015. We're in 2026 now, and they're still a thing. It's sad, but it is true. So again, a few things to help support me, or even the community. I've included that change link below. You do not have to live in Missouri or the United States to support change. Just signing a petition can be a ripple effect to other laws and regulations globally. So I will include that below. Please make sure that you do sign it. Additionally, the second thing that I'm going to include below is that nonprofit as well. So please make sure you send a donation over. Their efforts are greatly appreciated in all that they do and how they help teens and young minors. And then lastly, please make sure to like and subscribe. That's how you guys can support me directly. That's how you can support my channel. And that way we can keep producing amazing content like this. So I hope to see you guys again in the lab soon, and make sure you stay safe and secure out there. Bye!